Welcome to the HMO Property Show. By investors, for investors. Catch us weekly as we discuss all things cash flow positive property investing. Whether you're a seasoned investor, a new landlord, or just curious about property investing, this is the podcast for you. Sponsored by the Co-Living Collective, your trusted partner in creating vibrant and sustainable shared living experiences. Visit us at colivingcollective.com.au to learn more.
Welcome back to the HMO Property Show. I'm your host, Neil Gibb, and today we've got a man who's making a second appearance, but the first appearance was only for a short time. In episode 100 is Mr. Brent Compton from Reside. Brent, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
So in this episode, I want to talk about the NDIS and the SDA space that we're operating ourselves. As a business, we always said we'd help investors bring a certain amount of houses to the market, which we did. And we hoped it was going to be a little bit more streamlined than what it is, right? But we're coming up against some challenges. So in this episode, I want to help reassure the people that have invested in the NDIS with us that we're doing everything we can to help solve the problems and get people in housing, so that ticks both boxes, right? We're here to help people get a good return on investment, but more importantly, have some impact on the market and get good people into good houses. Yeah. So before we do it, though, I think it'd be good that people understand a little bit more about Brent, the success that he's had in his life, up to date.
Well, it's been my daughter asked me the other day, "How's your life been?" I said, "Oh, it's been amazing. It's been fantastic." I suppose after high school and university and all those sorts of things, I got into hospitality. It was helped me work around the world, and I worked in a couple of really nice 5-star hotels and had some enjoyable times there. But it was about 22, I think, 23. I had zero grey hairs. And I decided I would get into real estate, do sales. And I was living in Brisbane at the time.
Yep.
I went to 5 Ray White offices with all great Ray White principals, and selected a gentleman at South Brisbane, Ray White South Brisbane, Dean Yesberg, and I worked for him for 10 years in Brisbane.
Right.
Then I met my beautiful wife at the Storybridge Hotel one day. We were pen friends and things like this, and keeping in touch.
Pen friends?
Yeah, well, she only gave me her email address. She didn't give me a phone number, so I had to do the correspondence that way. I suppose you'd call the new age pen friends.
Yeah.
And she worked in the airline industry, so I decided I would leave real estate, even though I was going really well and enjoying my time in Brisbane.
Yep.
So I'd start again and moved to Perth in 2012.
So what brought you to Perth then, if everything was going well in Brisbane?
Well, I like a challenge. Liz, my lovely wife, I think that's a no-brainer, and we got married and had a daughter not long after that. But the real estate side of thing excited me because I'd already done so much in Brisbane. I'd reached Elite Performer, which in Ray White, which is a wonderful company. I really enjoyed working for them. It's one of the highest sort of standards of sales, and I'd reached that in Brisbane. And I thought, well, I can do the same sort of things in Brisbane in Perth as I did in Brisbane. I'll be successful there. And it turns out I had a really good 10 years in real estate in Perth. Ended up owning my own office in the city, Ray White City Residential, with my lovely wife and I. We did that after I sort of cut my teeth a little bit in the Perth market. And again, people ask me why did I stop doing that, because it was great money and it was enjoyable for most parts, but I'm not at the age yet where I sort of have given up wanting to try new things and take on new challenges. And having been successful in real estate and in sales, but we also had property management. I've done developments and
been around
you name it.
Over 20 years we're talking, aren't we?
Yeah, pretty much everything you could do in residential sales and leasing and things like that I've covered, and managed teams, and a great sort of we won lots of awards and things like that. I was pretty proud of all of that, but I like real estate and I like real estate agents, but what you want to create in life and what you want to do, how much purpose you want to have in life, I felt I was a little bit lacking in something in that industry, because I was going to work, making people money, but not really contributing a lot to the community or society.
Very transactional.
Those sorts of things, yeah. So I sort of decided to take the big step away to sell out of the business and move aside for a while. And I did a bit of a passion project, which I'm still doing at the moment, for helping people with mental health, raise money for charity. It's called Social Media Break, and that's something I've been doing as a side project. But how I got to here was because when I was doing real estate in Perth, I met a guy called Troy Feld, who obviously you know very well.
Business partner, yeah.
And our business dealings in real estate, from a real estate agent to a buyer or a representative of buyers at times, was really good. He came across as a very honest, genuine person. Myself, I did real estate straight up and down and enjoyed being very honest and frank with people. I don't think there's any point in beating around the bush. If you've got good news or bad news to say it, whatever it is. So Troy and I had a good relationship in real estate. I knew I could bring him and perhaps give him information that I wouldn't otherwise do, because I knew it was safe with him, and we did some business together. And so he contacted me almost a year ago, something like that, and said there's an opportunity to do something in the SDA SIL space, the NDIS space. And I was like, well, that's fantastic, because I really was looking for a bit more purpose with my skills that I could put to use. And I had a chat with yourself and Troy, and I must admit at the time I was not an expert, and I still probably aren't at everything to do with the NDIS, but it certainly seemed there was people out there that in need, people out there that I could potentially help, and that sort of excited me. So jumped on board, and we've been going pretty hard since.
Yeah, and it's been a good journey, mate. You've made some great headway in this space. Before we get into that, I just want to highlight there. So you moved from Brisbane to Perth, set up your own business again under the Ray White banner, started, scaled, and sold out that business. How big was the team at its peak?
Oh, I had about 24 staff.
So decent size.
I also reached the level I was talking about, elite performer in Western Australia, which is one thing I'm most proud of in real estate, is that I was successful in 2 locations. I think the reason that's not been very much done quite often in the Ray White Group is once someone's established, they're obviously extremely good agents. They can stay and make good money. I've done it in 2 spots. So adaptable, I suppose, which is probably a good thing to have in what we've been doing. So yeah, that's about it. And I've got a young family, and we're just I'm trying to do as much good as I can out there in the world. Obviously while making a living.
Yeah, let's talk about Social Media Break then, because that segues nicely, trying to do some good in the world. What is it, and why did you set it up, and how's it going?
I was starting to feel in my ventures around the world that people are starting to be very distracted. I see mental health. This is 3 or 4 years ago. I could see mental health was really taking a decline. I could see very clearly most people, if they're honest with themselves, probably spend too much time on social media, no matter what age group you're at.
In that bracket,
and at the time I sort of started building this website, app, etc., there was no real data. It's one of those things that sort of people thought so, but now it's been released, and it's Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, clearly shows that there's direct correlation between excessive social media use, anxiety, depression, poor mental health outcomes, which lead to all sorts of other things. So I thought, my whole life I've been trying to work out a way of trying to do some good without needing a team of people or billions of dollars. So I thought I'd get started in doing that. So it's actually available anytime anyone wants to jump on and have a look at that. Really, you take a break from social media, you build a profile and a post on our page, on our platform, and you can connect it to planting trees or raising money for charities. And by posting that on your page, people see when you're obviously gone, so they're not worried about you, and they can donate to your charities that you've selected. So doing good for yourself as well as some other people at the same time, more impetus to sort of get off the Instagram and Facebook for 5 minutes and go out and spend some time with family, read a book. The roses. Yeah, exactly. So I think if the world did more of that, the world would be a better place. So we're pretty excited about the future of that app. It's hard to build. It was from scratch and never been done before. So
and no data to back it up, like you say.
Yes, it was good fun, but I'm excited, and people can check it out.
We'll put the link in the show notes for this.
If anyone watching this wants a free membership on the site, I'll tell you what. I'll make a free coupon code. So if they type in HMO, all caps lock.
Yep.
HMO, it'll give them a free membership.
Perfect. Well, we put the link in the show notes.
Feel free.
Explore that further. And I hope by painting the picture there, you can see why Brent was a good fit for the business. Lots of experience in the real estate space. Has a heart. Actually loves helping people. And when we were looking for somebody to come on board and help us unlock the SDA puzzle, I think you were just a great fit for that as well, mate. And judging by the results that we're getting now and the feedback that we're getting and the people that we're starting to help, it's all starting to piece together nicely, isn't it?
Well, it was, to be honest, at the start I was like, well, how does all this work?
We were like, questions.
And there was a few things that was a bit of a shock to me, but it's all coming together now. Certainly, I think there's challenges out there, no doubt, but the challenges the same for everybody. So I think the people out there that are investing in this space or acting in this space, it really helps to have decent representatives in the real estate side of things, or the leasing side of things, or the advice side of things, and the build side of things. All of the stuff that we do, I think, obviously I'm going to say this, but geez, it's tough with a poor provider. It'd be tough with a poor advice right now in this industry. It'd be real tough, to be honest. Yeah. So I think what I've been trying to do is gather as much information to compile some solutions, some options for people, which I think we're starting to get rubber on the road for all of those, which is great. And I wasn't 100% sure if they're all any good or not, but you've given us the faith to try them, and coming up trumps in some parts of what we're doing. So it's pleasant to see.
Yeah. And like you say there, we don't know the answers, right? So we're going out there. The reason we're going out there as well, clients have trusted us to put their hard-earned money or help them invest their hard-earned money in an asset. And we were relying on somebody else to fill these rooms for us. But the intention was always to set up Reside, get that as an SDA registered provider so that we can offer the property management the same as we can in the HMO space. Until we get that set up, Brent has been working with the other team that we partnered with in the early days to help fill rooms there. But there's challenges, like you say, right? It's not as straightforward as the HMO where we just go, here's a room, someone comes and views it and moves in 10 minutes later.
It's very different. So
where are the challenges?
The challenges are things that we can't actually control. Some of them are. Then I'll explain the big one. So for SDA and SIL are very different. So for us, we're cruising with with SIL opportunities, and the return on invest for investors is excellent as far as I'm concerned. But the SDA space was purported to be even better because of the returns. And much like any government-funded incentive sort of thing, the figures are so good for SDA on paper that any intelligent person with money to invest would do it.
Yeah, they look incredible. Feasibilities look great, right?
The problem is, Neil, there's a lot of intelligent people out there, and a lot of people have done it, which is the problem. So a statistic I've heard, I can't give you exact figures, and these are approximates, but in the last 7 years, the government have approved 7,000 participants for SDA funding, special disability accommodation. Australia-wide.
Yep.
In the last 7 years. So in 2024, approximately, if you're counting apartments and duplexes and houses and things, just putting all the beds together, just in 1 year, 7,000 beds were built last year.
Yeah.
That's, to me, seems extremely odd, because you've got thousands of beds that are already there, and what's already getting built in 2025, which is already on the progress sort of stage to be constructed.
We've got an oversupply of property
like I've never seen before. So in real estate terms, if you can put it to, say, an apartment complex, I've had plenty of experience with suburb where there might be 200, 300 apartments built very quickly. The first 40, 50% sell out quite fast. And then there's a lot that take can take a long time. Now, how long those apartments take to get filled depends on how many people are coming to buy, the supply, some migration sort of thing, and obviously the economy and the market. But with an SDA property, it's very different to people coming through Perth International Airport to come and buy an apartment. These people obviously have applications with the SDA, with the NDIA, and those decisions at the moment the government are making are slow.
Red tape central, bureaucracy central.
So, something I'm looking forward to talking about, and I know we're going to have a chat about soon, is what we're doing to fix or help people get better funding and get more funding and things 100%. Like that. But those conversations are more or less fixing the kink in the hose.
Yep.
The problem is that the government need to fund more people for SDA. And I'm not just saying that because we have investors with SDA properties. I'm just saying that because it's cheaper for the government to fund people with SDA. The cost of having people in hospitals with all this extra care, with it's actually about 30, 40, 50, in some cases hundreds % higher to look after people inside of a government hospital or inside a government institution or a healthcare facility than it does to have them in an SDA property with care providers looking after them. And guess what? You get better outcomes when people are at home with their own sort of privacy, their own dignity and their own carer that they choose. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer.
Which is why we got into this space, right, to help people that need it.
This is it. So the government has got the power to fix the SDA oversupply.
Yep.
It's just that a lot of red tape needs to be cut and also a change of understanding. I'm sure they understand it, but I know for a fact that they do, but I guess there's the election coming up and things like that. So
a little bit slow.
So if you own an SDA property, you haven't done the wrong thing by building an SDA property because it seemed and it still is potentially a good idea. It's just a lot of other people have done the same thing.
Yeah. So we've got a huge pipeline of property coming through there. Have we got enough demand to meet it? And what's the forecasted participants with funding in their plan that the NDIS is saying is going to come through? Because if we've seen a peak, surely it's going to slow back down, but surely the approved participants with funding in their plan will increase as well. Am I right in saying that?
You'd hope so. There's no forecast from the government about how many they're going to approve. That would be something they're not prepared to do, I'd imagine. I don't know, but I know that 7,000 have been done in the last 7 years.
Yeah.
So on an average 1,000 a year, that needs to go up quite quickly. And there's a lot more people, obviously. I'd imagine that there's be thousands and thousands of SDA applications before.
Yeah.
The thing is they talk about as value for money. When knocking back some of these things, but there's no case that well, there probably is, but there's ultimately in the majority of cases it's better for an SDA house for a person that needs SDA than for them to be in the health system for it clogging up or getting in beds for other people that need them in more of an emergency sort of a need versus like a long-term stay. So I think SDA's good if you've got participants. Is there enough demand? No, there's not enough demand. Hence why we're doing everything we sort of possibly can to try to limit any damage and create as much wealth for our investors as possible without being
So let's preface that as well. Is there enough demand? Not currently for the number coming through the pipeline, but it could increase in the future. Now, two things that we've got, which I feel is a benefit for our clients. So if there's any of our clients listening to this, don't freak out because we've got some solutions for you, right? We've built a much better product than the majority of people out there. You've seen some people, some other builders and other developers' product, and how does it compare to our two-bedroom?
I think there's I could sit here and talk about all the features in the property, but one thing it's about 30% above what the standard is. The houses we build are more than what's required, so it's better for the participant. But the fact that for a high physical support person that needs a hoist from the bed to the bathroom, I think I haven't seen any other developers at this point in time have a single swing from the picking up in the bed, putting them to the toilet, the shower and the basin and coming back again in the one swing. Generally people have to be taken off a hoist, put onto another one, and they lose dignity, and also the fact it takes more time, but it's also more of a risk to the care provider doing that double handling and things like that. So that's just one thing. The properties are really nice, and a lot of feedback to around that, to sort of people actually really want to be there. Yep. So I think you've built the right properties, and I think that they certainly give participants a better quality of life than they get many, many, many other places.
So better product in probably in a similar area as what some of the other products is. So if in our intention of having someone like yourself on board is to get in front of as many people as possible, to sell them about the product that we've got, show them how good it is, so that when they've got a choice between ours and somebody else's, they're going to pick ours because it's a better product, right? Higher ceilings, bigger doors, much more space internally. And then we've got someone like yourself going out there, meeting all these people, making connections. So how has that been going? How was it in the early days when you just started out, and how is it going now?
Yeah, well, I was obviously turned up to my first sort of meetings, and there's gatherings within the NDIS sort of care providing network, which I've been fortunate enough to be able to go along to. And from those regular sort of meetings that I've been going to in various parts of Perth, I've met a lot of providers and it's built some really good relationships. And because I'm at those events and because I'm talking to people after the events and sort of finding out what they need and where they need it, we've been able to sort of discover a lot more about how we can create value for our investors. It's the questions and the answers I've been getting at those events that have probably been, at least 50 to 60% of our learnings. So those events, and also the emails and the sort of phone calls and everything I've been doing, more or less trying to introduce our product to as many care providers in Perth as possible, both SDA and SIL. And from that, once they see the quality, once they know the locations, the availability, they get back in touch with me, and then I get back in touch with whoever the SDA provider is for the SDA property, or if it's a SIL, obviously we manage that from that point. But that's quite good. It's because I'm talking to nice people. The people in the industry are they're looking after people in the biggest,
don't we?
Well, the biggest need in society are the people in the NDIS. They have the biggest need, and these people that look after them that I've been talking with are people that care about that. So generally, they're lovely people, really nice. Yeah, enjoy it.
And a stat that we found just recently was, which actually blew my mind, right? So this is specifically for Western Australia. There was 1,700 participants with funding in their plan for SDA, but are not currently living in SDA. So for everyone that heard them say there's an oversupply of property, there's also a lot of people that have funding that currently are not in property. So what's going on there, Brent?
Well, it's funny, when you say that, I start to think of the ones I actually know. Some of them are robust, Neil. So robust is more mental, and they may well be in greylands. And they may well be in places where they're still at home with their parents, and whilst they have SDA funding, their parents choose to be there looking after them and those sorts of things. I've seen that situation finish as well, where the parents get old, and we're currently talking to a provider at the moment that basically has been appointed by the parents to find their daughter, who's be about 21, 22, find her a house, an SDA property, and they're going through all the funding and everything else there. Where all the other ones are, well, it's a good question. What you've just said there actually brings me to that point where the government's given this information. This isn't coming from anywhere else, and people have been made decisions on that information. Again, raises questions. It's sort of they won't give you names or locations or email addresses or phone numbers. They'll just tell you a number.
And where's that number from? It's like, the data that they're provided is very wishy-washy.
May well be real, but what it goes to show is that not everybody that has SDA funding uses SDA funding. I think that's pretty clear. So that for whatever reason, it just makes it a little bit harder.
So what about the other people or participants that need SDA housing but don't have the correct funding in the plan? I mean, what we've kind of uncovered, I say I'm not going to take any credit for this because you found this, but we found that there's a lot of people out there that want access to housing but don't have the correct funding in the plan. Like they've either got 3-bedroom funding, not 2-bedroom funding, so it's a little bit less.
Well, hopefully the people watching this podcast can stay with me. I'm going to go down a road here and try to explain something, and it's our learning process, I suppose. We have 2-bed, 2-bath, 2-bed, 2-bath participant properties with a third OA for our SDA properties, and there's a thing called 3-to-1 funding, 2-to-1 funding, 1-to-1 funding. It just basically means how many carers are with a person. That 3 people can go with 1 carer, and they must be all 3-to-1 funding. Yeah. Now, when we found out that the government potentially, if it's true, is doing more 3-to-1 funding than 2-to-1 funding, we thought, well, we could have 2 3-to-1 funded people in our 2-bedroom, plus OA. And it told to me that doesn't really work for a provider, because the providers are only getting less money on each person, and to have a person there to give care to 2 people instead of 3 on 3-to-1 funding doesn't work.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So this is like, whoa, hopefully everyone stayed with us there. But so that's confusing for some, just at the very least. But the funding that people don't have adequate funding in their plan, that's actually quite a lot of people. And there's a lot of people out there that have some form of funding but could be getting SDA funding but haven't, or for whatever reason. And I sort of, in my journey of trying to get more for the business and get more for the people that are in the business, I started looking around at how can we solve the problem. Like, my goodness, there's big things out here that we can't control. What can we control? It was told to me by a couple of, probably more than 2 or 3 to be honest, external people, but still in the industry, that had no reason to tell me otherwise if it wasn't true. They were saying that people in WA, in their opinion, were less than the best at getting SDA funding through the NDIA. A level of skill sort of comparison to maybe the East Coast have had more practice at it, more competitive. Maybe they had to get better. I don't know, and I'm not saying entirely sure it's even true. But from the basis of that, we don't have enough participants over here. Potentially, the bottleneck is caused from the ability to get the funding ticked off at the government. That seemed reasonable to me.
Yeah.
So I went about finding the best person in Australia.
Before we get into that,
Okay.
this is a really, really good point that you're going to bring up, right?
Yeah.
But there's 2 things that I want to kind of bring up there. So the funding side of things, right, 2-to-1 to 3-to-1. The bizarre thing is, right, we're hearing that there's more 3-to-1 funding out there, right? But when the NDIS brought out their pricing review guideline in 2024, they indicated that the 2-bedroom, 1 OA house would get the most funding, which is an indicator that they want more of that housing supply to the market. So. Because what they were seeing in the 3-bedroom model, 3-bedroom plus OA, they had the highest vacancy rate because they were filling 2 rooms and not the other. So they then indicated that the 2-bed OA would be better, and then they bring out more 3-to-1 funding, which just blows my mind, right? Blows my mind.
Cost savings.
Government.
Cost
Say no more.
Yeah,
Right.
it's you're 100% correct.
Yeah.
That is true, and it's also true that at the same time, Bill Shorten's announced he's going. We've got an election coming up. Having a tight budget going into an election when your opposition is saying they're a better economic better at handling the economic situation in the country, it's pretty important to have a good tight balance sheet there.
Yeah.
You'd hope that whoever wins, they start spending the money in the industry.
The good thing is it's federally legislated for 20 years, right? So they can't get rid of it.
No.
Which is a good thing. But just before we get on to the next piece that you're going to talk about, which I know you're going to bring up next, just to come off the back of what Brent was saying there, the way I can kind of articulate this in the best fashion is when we look at the 2 different sides of the puzzle, you got your builders and developers, and then you got your care providers. Builders and developers, generally very entrepreneurial, will always find a solution for the problem, which is why we've got so much product coming through the pipeline now, because they've all worked out exactly what is required to build to the NDIS specification, deliver what is needed, and then get the SDA certification on the back end of the properties, right? Fantastic. Because we've all been told there's so much demand out there by the NDIS. The people that are providing the care for these people are care providers at heart and have got big hearts, and that's what they love to do. They are not entrepreneurial by nature. There will be some of them out there, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of them out there that just want to provide care, and they know they've got John or Margaret or whatever the participant's name is that needs housing and needs funding, but they haven't got the time, the headspace or anything else because they're working long shifts. They haven't got the time and headspace to go out there and actually work out how to get the funding in that plan, right? Which segues nicely.
This is 100%. There's a very complicated, it's the way I've had it explained to me, it's quite simple, but it's very complicated to make it simple. I reached out to a couple of people I trusted that I asked who's the best at getting SDA funding through, like who are they, where do they exist? And it was I was referred SDA services in Queensland, and the person that runs that guy, a gentleman called Greg Barry, and I spoke to him and his people, and they actually were very accommodating. What we basically organised with them through Reside and Plan Partners, which is a great company here in Perth and Australia-wide actually, we co-hosted an event where we could present Greg Barry, SDA Services, to providers here in Perth, north and south of the river. And we had a great turnout, both events. We did that in November last year. And I think we had about 140, 100 and something across the two events. Greg Barry spoke for 1 hour straight on all of the bits and pieces that he gets in line to get reasonably, like 99% sure he's going to get funding through the SDA, as far as showing value for money, showing precedents, showing medical reports, showing all of the other corroborating evidence. I think if from what I'm understanding is a lot of people from all parts of Australia, not just WA, will put in an application missing key elements, and it's very quick for the government just to cross it off and then don't get a chance to have another crack at that for 6 months once you put everything else in, and that's no good for a participant.
Yeah. So this could be why we've got such low numbers as well, right?
I think it's part of the problem. Yeah. So Greg's solutions is not just he teaches and helps people, he also handles that stuff. So a provider, through extra funding provided by the NDIS that doesn't actually affect the amount that the participant has, it's separate for Greg's services. They can get that funded. Greg literally takes over the journey for that person getting SDA funding. And if they have to, they go to the tribunal. And from spending 2 days doing the events with Greg and another, we went to a regional WA to meet with a lot of other providers and a few departments together, and him and I having chats. He's got it covered. I think he has like a 99% success rate when he goes to the tribunal. So it means that there is a formula without doubt, and he knows what it is, and perhaps there are other people like that too, but we've presented from our company's point of view. We were initiated the whole thing with Plan Partners, and they were great to come along with us, Casey and Cody, and we worked together to try to give as much information as possible and as much help as possible to people in WA that are trying to get the SDA funding. And furthermore, on February 19, in 9 days' time, we are going to be doing the same thing again via webinar. We're doing another event. I think there's well over 260 people that have already registered for that event.
I might put the link to that in
Please.
the show notes again,
so
people want to register and come along. A lot of the information that you hear there, if you're not in this space, could go over your head.
I think I'd be watching that if I was an owner of an SDA property.
Give you some education and some knowledge in this space.
You'll at least see what we're doing, and you'll hear what Greg is doing, and we're putting him, as I say, next week, we're putting him in front of a couple of hundred more people, and trying as hard as we can to be part of the solution, I suppose, for that type of thing.
Yeah, it's good, man, really good. When I met this guy and had sat in the back of the room and listened to what he had to say, I started to understand why he was so passionate about bringing them over and getting them there, because he's essentially telling everybody what they need to do. It's like an educational component, right? We had how many north and how many south?
I was about 80 at one and 50 at the other, or something like that.
And then a lot of people couldn't make it, so now we've got 200 and something registered for.
As of spoke to Casey this morning, 261 as of 10 o'clock this morning.
Fantastic. So
that's a lot of people.
Not only are we out there knocking down doors, trying to get people in a housing, we're also partnering with these people to educate everybody.
Yeah.
And
well, credit to you, Neil. Like you obviously invested in the catering, and then they obviously there was events that we had, that room hire that had to be done.
And stuff as well, didn't we?
Greg's come over and you're like, it wasn't cheap. I know it wasn't cheap. But
the Crown Towers. I was like, oh, did you? Nice one.
But the ultimate thing is that the feedback is great. Oh, the best thing I can tell you about that is now we've got the webinar. People that come to the in-person events, they've registered for the webinar. So if anyone, like as far as educational piece goes, that these people wouldn't be coming back if they didn't think it was worthwhile, I suppose.
Really well received. The feedback you were getting from everybody.
We're doing a Q&A as well on the webinar, so people have an opportunity already. The providers that will be coming have got an opportunity to put in questions that we'll be having answers to.
Fantastic, mate. Well done. Good stuff. Anything else that we need to touch on in the SDA space before we move into...
we have solutions for the SDA people. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Let's talk about that.
So goes without saying, as I've mentioned before in this podcast, that there's more SDA properties than there are SDA participants. So we could sit around and cry about it, or we could do something about it. So what could we do? HMO or property co-living, obviously that we're building co-living properties already. We have one of the best property management teams and understanding of that area very well. So clearly one of the options is converting an SDA to a HMO and getting a good income for a period of time that you see the market improve back to an SDA time where you can take the co-living housemates out and put your SDA people in. When that day comes, fantastic. It means that you're paying the mortgage. It means you've got an income coming in. It means it's not zero. 100% of zero is nothing.
Look, don't get me wrong, converting to a co-living property, the income's not as high as what you'd expect from an SDA, but like you say, it's income, right?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's actually for anyone that has a big mortgage that's got a bank on their back, the other options are SIL. So we'll probably lead to that very shortly. We'll talk more about SIL, but SIL is supported independent living, which is 93% of the NDIS funding scheme. So SDA 7, SIL, which is more co-living style situations where people are able-bodied or mostly able-bodied, mildly impaired, small disabilities, not wheelchair sort of situation. They fit SIL. That's a 93%. That's a massive amount of money.
So when we look at the size of the SDA market compared to the SIL market, it's minuscule, right?
So we're from all of the efforts that we've been doing, we've found a lot of great relationships with some good providers that are reputable, that do the right thing. They are now looking very carefully at our SIL properties or our HMOs properties, but also the best thing of all is the fact that SDA house to a person that doesn't quite have SDA funding but needs an SDA house could well lead to an SDA participant moving into your property. That's leading on to what I'm about to say is STA and MTA. And
so many acronyms, isn't
there? These are acronyms.
SDA,
I'll do
Special Disability Accommodation. STA?
TA. The T's the most important one. It's short-term accommodation.
Why did they make it so similar to fucking SDA?
Special is a lot of someone in the back room just decided it was confused. It says MTA, medium-term accommodation. So just for a recap, so we've got SDA, you can rent it as an SDA. You can rent an SDA as a HMO. You can rent an SDA
long-term
as a SIL. You can rent an SDA short-term and medium-term. So the medium-term and short-term could technically be for anyone in SDA or SIL, but they just need that type of better facilities.
Where does their funding come from if they don't have SDA funding?
Well, this is the thing. So that's the challenge. At the moment, we're dealing with, I can say one of our properties at the moment is an SDA that has been transformed, fully furnished to be a SIL property or an SDA property. It's
actually my property.
Yes, it is.
So I put my property on the line.
Didn't want to say too much.
No, I don't mind. The reason the whole business is here because HMO started from my own portfolio, and now we're trying to find out solutions on how to fill these SDAs. So I've put my property up as a bit of a case study.
Well, that's I can speak openly then. So the house, your house, great house, you've furnished it, you've done all you can, and you've set it up to potentially be a HMO or a SIL.
Yep.
But I come along to you and I go, Neil, Troy, can we do an SDA, MTA? And we had to do the acronym thing again. And then so short-term and medium-term can be quite lucrative if the person's funded under the NDIA for short-term and medium-term. It can be $2,000 a night for short-term on weekdays and $3,000 a night on the weekend, which seems like an enormous amount of money.
That doesn't all go to the client, though, does it?
Not all for accommodation.
Hands together and go, that'll do, get me some short-term.
I know.
That includes the care provider as well.
Yeah, that includes food and everything. Everything could possibly be wanted to be included in, that covers it. But a huge portion of that can be accommodation, obviously, depending on the person.
Is it like 30, 40, 50%?
I couldn't say for sure, but depending on the care needing to be provided, I suppose. But ultimately, the money's for accommodation and for them to be in emergency care for short term, so something's happened, or it could be respite. Medium term is transitioning sort of thing. Now, we went out to the market and we had some great inquiries. We have got an interesting situation where we have a person that doesn't have SDA funding, but they have a real situation where they're in a wheelchair, they are non-verbal, and they have a family, and they want to be in that house, but they don't have the funding. So what we've been, obviously, as you know, we've been offered an amount to get us through until such time as the SDA funding is approved. And for yourself, if you were to do that, if that happens, it's obviously a few things in the air at the moment, but subject to that happening and their funding being approved in the next 2 to 3 months, or the feedback I've already got is that those people are staying. They're not. You wouldn't be able to get them out.
So
they want to stay.
Short stay to medium to long.
You go from short stay to SDA, SDA to STA to SDA. Yeah,
right through the acronyms.
That's that journey, but it doesn't necessarily always happen like that. I've heard stories of people staying for 3 months, and it can be variations. So ultimately, from an investor's point of view that has an SDA, furnishing it, getting it ready for that type of opportunity could mean you're doing that, or you could do something similar or different, but ultimately we're getting tenants from various places, and it doesn't always come from the NDIS. It can be from the Department of Youth Justice, it can be from the Department of this and the Department of that. So whatever government agency has the money for the people that they're looking after, they don't have to be in the NDIS.
Cool. And like you say, my property is going up as a case study, and then once we unlock the puzzle and we find out exactly how this all works, then we'll be contacting clients, and if we have people looking, we'll be contacting clients.
Well, I think it does work. I've heard of a lot of people doing a lot more SDA and MTA out there, and I think we're still scratching into that sort of market. But I think it's the amount of phone calls and emails I got from it was excellent.
How big's your database now, Brent?
We're about 436
today.
Size. I've got to add another one from today, so 437. So, but ultimately, it's a decent size. I like the fact that it's 437 people of real value. We've been pretty careful to make sure we've got people that are active. It's when I send an email out, I don't get a lot of bounce backs. It's really good. So,
and there's a cost for this conversion in the furniture park, the fire alarm system.
Yeah, so ultimately $25,000, but gets you all the furniture. The fire alarm system needs to be slightly upgraded because it's a shared living situation. And once all that's ticked off, your door locks and things like that. Ultimately the house for $25,000, you got an SDA turns into a legally operatable HMO, which also can be an SDA, which also can be an MTA.
So it gives you multiple ways to get some income coming in.
Oh my word!
Even if we just HMO it with our normal co-living tenants that we have, everywhere from baristas and retail workers right through to doctors, nurses, engineers. If we put them in, we can still advertise it as an SDA.
I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to at least have it out there. Having inspections would still be possible with the right people. We obviously have virtual reality tours and videos and photos and all these sorts of things as well. If a person that had SDA funding, say for instance they're in a wheelchair, they want to see the property, we could show them one without furniture somewhere else that says exactly what it looks like, and we can get them in the virtual reality world and have a look at the VR as well. And we could then bring them into the property, I suppose, with appropriate notification to the tenants.
There'll be a lead time as well. So like we're finding out, no, this doesn't happen fast in this space, right? It's not as fluid as the normal rental market or the HMO space. Well, so if we've got a 2 or 3 month lead time, we can then say to the people in the HMO, look, guys, this was originally built, intended to be housing participants with disabilities. These people are now going to come in. We can either move you to the next property, and that way we can keep them in our ecosystem, and then we get the right people in the right houses, which is absolutely win-win. Love it.
I agree with that. I think ultimately, like what you said, you can put those people into another house, and it's not like it's all over for them if they've been good tenants, of course.
Yeah, we always try our best to keep solution in the ecosystem as well.
Yeah, so I think that ultimately an SDA owner built an SDA house to get high rent, and that's what they should always be trying to do. That's ultimately what our goal is for them.
Yeah.
So the journey there might be a little bit more difficult.
Might be a bit bumpy. Yeah. And short term, you might not get as much, but long term, if we can get some income coming in, still advertise for SDA, we can transition them people out, get some NDIS participants in there, and then
live to fight another day.
That's it.
I think that's the policy on that one. And it's not great, but at least we've got 3 or 4 or 5 solutions that we can actually do.
Yeah.
Versus
and are doing.
Yeah, that's right.
So
it's not we think this is a good idea. Like, I'm very confident about the stuff that I've been doing. It's just I wish there was less headwinds, but you adjust the sail correctly, you go just as fast.
That's it, man. That's it. And look, again, thanks for sharing all this, Brent, because I just wanted everybody to understand how proactive we're being in this space to try and fill these houses for them. There's another acronym that you threw in there, which is SIL, S-I-L.
Yes.
Tell us about SIL and tell us about what's going in there. Well, in the HMO space,
that's really exciting. Like SIL, supported independent living. That's just so make sure. I actually started trying to fill the SDA properties when I started, and then I found it quite challenging. And more and more I hear about the SIL. And what's all this SIL? It's an accommodation for people that don't quite need an SDA, but it seems like the bigger part. So we've done investigations into that. And as I've been building relationships with good providers, and they know that our business is built on the right foundations and with people that are trying to do good things and have our customers' best interests at heart, the people have been quite attracted to our brand. So as a result of that, I've been building up a really good list of some fantastic providers with really good people behind them. And they have been saying that our initial product that the HMO Co has been building,
6 bed, 6 bath.
6 bed, 6 bath, 8 bed, 8 bath, they've gone, well. So it's got a kitchenette, it's got an ensuite, it's got its own TV, you've got your own fridge, you basically got a studio apartment. So for these people living in SIL, the current SIL house right now would be a 4-bed, 2-bath. You got someone in the main bedroom enjoying an ensuite, and you got 3 people sharing a bathroom. Mm-hmm. They don't all keep the bathroom clean and tidy, but when you put them into a co-living property, they've got their own independence, which is one of the key things that the whole scheme is trying to do, is create independence.
The I stands for supported independent
living. Exactly. So that these people are feeling better already. We're building them brand new. They look fantastic, but you also get the community. You go down the hallway, you're in the lounge room, and then all of a sudden 2 or 3 friends that you otherwise might not have had, and you don't need to associate them with. If you don't want to, you can bugger off back to your bedroom and lock the door, binge watch something. It doesn't matter. But ultimately, you got the choice there, where those types of accommodation sort of things in the old 4x2, they're not built for a SIL. They're not technically had any thought whatsoever about the SIL market when they were building those houses. Yep. They're not purpose built. You could say our properties, and we've even picked up a few things we can tweak even better. Our properties are perfect, and I'm getting that feedback from a lot of providers. So how do we sit in SIL right now is exceptionally good. I was just saying to yourself and Troy today, looking back at how many properties that you've been building anyway for HMO that have come to the market or are coming to the market. I think in the last 5 months, I've had a provider or could have signed or a head lease on every single one that you've had come through the pipeline, including one today in Naranda that was built as a SIL. The owner has a choice.
Built as a HMO.
Built as a
fits the SIL.
Apologies,
perfectly, right?
Built as a HMO. Owner not thinking SIL, has the opportunity of having a SIL, or it has the opportunity of being HMO.
Yep.
Thing about SIL is that it would be excellent if the rents were higher.
Yeah, we're capped out.
They're capped based on the percentage of amount of money that a provider can take from a pension, a weekly pension. All of these people are on a pension. There's $1,100 a fortnight or something, what a pension is in Australia. And that goes up, of course, but that ultimately the providers that pay the rent as a head lease to the owner, they are governed by the amount of money that they can extract from the people that are staying in the property, and that is governed by the pension amount and the percentages and so on and so on. So they still have to feed them, have to pay, electricity, water, rate, internet, cleaning, etc. So there's a lot of cost coming out of it, but ultimately we're achieving rents around $325 a week per room.
Guaranteed.
10 years, 15 years, however long they like. So
no leasing fees.
We had one operator that wanted 25 years. Right. We've just signed a lease for 10 years, up to the investor what they want to do there. But the thing is, with a HMO co-living, you may have higher rents, but you're also paying... It's
gas, water, electric, internet, cleaners,
everything,
leasing fees every time someone moves in and out.
Yep.
This is $325 per room. We charge a 2-week leasing fee at the very start.
4 weeks.
Oh, 4 weeks. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you, Brent. Underselling myself.
Well,
but we charge that up front.
It should be more because there's only one letting fee for 10 years.
We've obviously got Brent on board, and we need to cover costs and stuff. So we charge 4 weeks up front for leasing these properties. But then you've got one company that takes a head lease for 5, 10, 15, 25 years. That rent is pegged to CPI as well.
Correct. So you're guaranteed rent basically 52 weeks of the year, zero vacancy. So whilst you get higher rent with HMO, you have more costs and you have more vacancy just from natural vacancy, really. Even if they were always rented, there's still in and outs from bedrooms being vacant. With SIL, it's forget letting fees once only, and then they're yours. You save money on all the extra costs, and the CPI every year, or whatever that does, reflects on the rent. So CPI goes up, so do your rents. Yeah. And you can guarantee it. Now, I know for a fact that banks, when presented two properties, as good as HMO is, they'll still like, oh, geez, a 10-year lease. Who wouldn't?
Buy a company.
Yeah. Like, so that's another thing for an investor. And again, I'm really excited about it because it looks really good on paper and it is working out for a couple of our customers already. But from my perspective, I'm out trying to get as many providers to sign EOIs, or expression of interest, another acronym, to say they will take a property in 12 months' time. That isn't the world's easiest job because some people don't know what they're going to be doing in 12 months' time, but they know they might have a demand and so forth. But what I've saying before is that if I've got providers ready to go into our last 7 properties, I'd guess that I've probably got providers to go into our next 7 properties almost regardless of where they are, because it just seems to be the demand that I'm getting coming through. So I'd be building a HMO with absolute supreme confidence that you've got a sensational investment and it could get even better.
Yeah.
So HMOs works every time. We all know how wonderful they are and how much returns they are, how safe they are. It's a fantastic product. That same house could also be a sort of like a cash cow doing it a different way. Yeah. And so you've got 2 bites of the cherry. So if it was me, I'd just build in a great spot, good location, close to transport, medicals, all those sorts of things you'd be doing whether or not you're building it for SIL. And in 12 months' time, we'll have a tenant.
We've actually got a list of suburbs that they want properties building in.
Yep.
So again, if you are considering investing, but the fact that you don't have a guaranteed income has stopped you from moving forward, then this could be an option. These are all single-story properties, obviously. Head leases, we can give you the letter of intent from the care provider at the very start. And you build the property, and then they'll take the head lease from the minute it's handed over and start paying your rent. Still need furniture packs?
Yes. Well, no, yes and no.
Not as intense.
Certainly be prepared to do a furniture pack. I have all those ready to go. I'm talking to one company at the moment that asked whether they could have it unfurnished. So that's interesting. But that's not the norm, I would say. It's but there might be little tiny things that might need to be done at some stage. But ultimately, like one of the tenants that I've got at the moment was supposed to be a HMO but is a SIL. The owners are absolutely over the moon, by the way. The provider says, I'm here for 10 years and I'm paying the electricity. Do you think I can put solar panels on the roof and leave them when I go? And the owner's like, yeah. That hasn't happened yet, but when you're on a 10-year lease and you start looking at these things, the providers are certainly obviously keen to make money as well, which is fine. They should be able to make money. Absolutely. I like working with those types of providers because they're obviously trying to do the right thing by everybody. But we have, I think, some people need a EOI, but I've got a bunch of suburbs that I don't have an EOI for at the moment that I would guarantee you would have people for. It's just a matter of getting them there, but building them and having them ready as soon as possible.
Yeah, the appetite's incredible, isn't it? Well done, mate. Good stuff. Just to wrap this up as well, if people have wanted to move forward, but the cash or equity component has stopped them from moving forward, we've also now got access to what's called a deposit assist scheme, where if you don't have the 20% deposit, another company would put that 20% down for you. So you technically get a 100% lend, even though you would have 80% with one bank and 20% with another. That 20% is calculated at 6.5% per annum, and they will leave it in the deal for up to 10 years. However, you can pay them out anytime you want. So if you get an increase in value in your property, you can go back to the bank, refinance at the high rate and pay that 20% back, and then you own the property. So it's a good way for people to get into HMO with minimum cost down. You still need to pay your stamp duty, you still need to pay your holding costs during construction, and you still need to pay our fee, obviously, for putting these deals together. And then you need to pay for your furniture pack on the back end. However, if you've got a SIL head lease locked in, then there could obviously be normally very little to no money down with a 5 to 10, 15, 25 year lease in place. And they might pay for the furniture if we get the right SIL provider there as well. So
I think isn't it? I like that. I think it sounds very good. The thing with anyone investing right now in a HMO / potential SIL, if they have a block of land right now already, that's great, as long as it's a well placed one. But it wouldn't be hard, obviously, if any of them communicate with your sales team to get back in touch with me to sort of vet the suburb and the location. I can always go back out to other providers and say, subject to a property being here, would that be good? Yeah. And we can get some pretty good feedback on that. But I really like what you do for investors in the sense that what we've now managed to achieve is extra for somebody potentially, and that's for SIL, from a HMO to SIL, and from an SDA to SIL and HMO. The fact that the company has a few branches and a few skills, being able to put them together and go back to forth is going to be really good for your clients and all the customers that we have moving forward. Sort of gives them a bit more security. It goes back to what I said at the start. If you've got bad advice right now and you're talking to the wrong people that tell you they know what they're doing and everything's fantastic, or there's a lot of them out there. I've seen it all in residential real estate, and obviously seeing new things in this field as well. But it comes down to, if someone says they're an expert, it's just give me the heebie-jeebies, because from what I can tell in this industry, there are very few experts. But even if they were saying they're an expert, that's a bit of a concern, because if you think you know it all, you're not learning. Yeah. And I think the most important thing for our business moving forward is we need to keep learning, because some of the stuff we've learned even as recently as 2 or 3 weeks ago is pretty crucial and pretty critical in staying ahead of this situation daily.
The further you go into this, the more things that are becoming relevant and front of mind. And
we've had some interesting phone calls and text messages with new news found. But
we set up a group chat in the early stages, right? And it was just like dooms every day. I was like, oh God, give me some good news. But now, just about every message that comes through is got, there's a story attached to it with the people that were helping, and like you say, the people there with
the best story was actually a SIL story where a HMO, we rented to a SIL provider. They've moved in. Couple of weeks later, they're still filling all the rooms. Couple of weeks later, I get a phone call from a friend of mine that says there's a guy that he bumped into at the petrol station.
Yeah.
Am I able to say that?
Yeah.
So my friend, let's call him Dave. He bumps into a friend at the petrol station who looks down on his luck. He went to high school with him. The gentleman in question's mid-30s, and he'd had a accident, a car accident that wasn't his fault, and he had a acquired brain injury, so he wasn't thinking very well. He had a big beard. He was covered in dirt. He was sleeping rough, and my friend, who recognised him, started talking to him, and my friend's a very compassionate guy, and got a bit more information out of him. His mother had died about a year and a half ago. He was living with the mother in a set location where the landlord kicked him out after the mother passed away because he wanted to sell the house. And this guy just went to the streets. He didn't have any identification. He hadn't had a bath or a shower in a very long time. He hadn't gone to fight or try to get justice or compensation for the accident that wasn't his fault, that left him with an acquired brain injury. And I rang up the SIL provider that we'd just leased the property to. They went and met him and the other chap and had a couple of meetings. And after a couple of meetings, they decided that he'd be a really good fit for the house. And that day that he went around for the second visit to the SIL house, they said, well, you can stay if you want. And he cried just on the spot in the lounge room, and they got him into the shower, and not them, but they gave him all the soap and everything, and he went and showered, and next day had a haircut, next day had a shave, next day went and got some identification, next day went and got some legal representation. Couldn't be happier. So that obviously a chance meeting, but reaching out to try and find help. We had help, and this guy's gone from potentially terrible circumstances, like could be even worse than that, obviously could pass away, something could happen to him, to on the up, happy guy, very grateful. We're helping one of the providers that are helping us, and we know they're good, so we're happy about that. And I'm like, chuffed, it's fantastic.
Why we do what we do, right?
Yeah, so it's a great story to have, and it's all it came out of a HMO house that turned into a SIL that had a good provider that, and that's just one story.
Yeah.
These houses have 5 or 6 stories. So, so it's really good.
Yeah.
That's so any investor that wants to invest compassionately as well as obviously for their bottom line, you kind of get both of those things doing this type of investment.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to have many, many more of them stories, mate, over the years to come. So,
So.
Brent, thanks very much for all your hard work and the success that we've had so far, mate. And maybe we do another one in 6 months' time or 12 months' time, and find out how much impact we've been having in this space. We'll drop all the links for social media break and everything else to do with
the webinar with Plan Partners and SDA services.
Yeah.
I think the 19th of February. I think so, coming up soon, and that will be great just as an extra educational piece for anyone that wants to learn about how the SDA funding is actually applied for and approved.
Beautiful. Brent, thanks very much for your time. Join us again next week on the podcast.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you can stay up to date with all cash flow positive property updates.